Hey everyone, this is Sourav. Welcome to NarraScope 2026. We'll start on with the talk. Today's talk is titled Trust, Betray, Repeat. Designing immersive narrative tabletop at the intersection of four traditions. We'll walk through a case study of the Maze of Moodoo in the world of Shinerox to understand this talk in a better way. Before we start, a bit about me. Hi, I'm Sourav. I am a narrative game designer and an academician. I have previously worked on tabletop, hybrid, as well as digital games. Currently, I'm co-founder at Imersync, and we are building Shinerox. It's a world IP where we'll be releasing a number of games, gamified experiences, novels, animation in this world. The first experience that we have is called the Maze of Moodoo. Immersing also runs Game a Month series where we release one-pager roll and write game where the mechanics differ every month based on a particular theme. Let's go over the outline of the talk. At first, we'll look into the theoretical context, how hybrid tabletop design fall within game studies and narrative theory. We'll look into the four traditions, which is part of the subtitle, the case study, which encompasses the Maze of Moodoo, the emotional arc of Maze of Moodoo, following the main argument and the implications. Let's start with the theoretical context. Hybrid tabletops sit in the gray area or in between ludology and narratology, ideally narrative and mechanic for a game. So most games would have it as separate ludology or the mechanic and narratology as the narrative. The lines are blurred over here, but hybrid tabletop sits right in the gray area, occupying both of them simultaneously. The narrative immersion framework developed by Mary Laurie Ryan talks about the three main dimensions: spatial, temporal, epistemic, which is grouped also with emotional. Now, hybrid tabletop falls in an overlap of all of these. The spatial is the sense of place, whereas the temporal is the desire to know, and epistemic is the desire to understand. The emotional immersion involves affective reactions to the story or overall to the experience. So it is an overlap of all these four. The magic circle by Huizinga is something that most immersive theaters talk about, where you enter particular space in which you are part of that space. The magic circle by Huizinga becomes a preamble where theatrical and ludic modes overlap, producing a new form of player agency. And hybrid tabletop totally falls in that place. Ian Bogost's procedural rhetoric talks about the art of persuasion through a rule-based experience. Over here, it shows how mechanics itself becomes a system for the narrative. Okay, let's talk about the four traditions. The hybrid tabletop experience draws simultaneously from all four as an integral design grammar. The four are immersive theater, escape room, TTRPGs, board games. Few things from the four tradition which hybrid tabletops take up. Immersive theater has an embodied participation with an environmental storytelling. The line between the actor and the viewer is suspended, where the actor directly interacts with the viewer or the viewer directly interacts with the actor as part of the experience. In escape room, the collaborative decoding of a particular puzzle or how to escape the room as an embedded narrative for the room, the time pressure to solve it is something that are part of hybrid tabletop. TTRPG has that player dependent narrative where players shape the narrative as well as it is a game master mediated experience. And finally, board games have their own rule based systems, the win conditions, the economy, the competitive stakes, which all take part in the betrayal in the hybrid tabletop. Okay, so the Maze of Moodoo in the world of Shinerox is an immersive narrative hybrid tabletop experience. It is played among 4 to 8 players and it has a two-phase gameplay. At the start is the collaborative trust, at the end is the competitive betrayal, which is the main title of our talk: Trust, Betrayal, Repeat. Let us look at each of the elements which influence this hybrid tabletop. Number 1, ritual puzzle sequencing through map navigation. The sequence in which the puzzles are encountered is not random. They are designed in a way that they slowly build the trust among the players before going on to the betrayal. The map is also not a linear map, it's a two-sided map. The map is divided into panels, so it can fold in ways that you can travel from one panel to another. The map navigation to go from one puzzle to the other and their sequencing choreographs that trust building between players before the betrayal mechanic kicks in. Number 2, the ritual mechanics. The ritual mechanics are collective ritual performance which creates a shared narrative investment, raising the overall emotional cost of the betrayal. Players perform the rituals collectively, which creates a much more emotional arc with the betrayal. The diegetic world building. Now, Shinerox itself functions as a setting for this whole experience, including the mythology and its logic already imbibed in the game. The immersive theater by the game master and their performance supplements that, making the world building feel more real. The game does not end with the experience right there. Players generally take home a minigame which acts as a sequel for the proper closure of the game. And finally, the escape condition. After all the collaboration, finally a betrayal comes in through the rule format that only one person can escape out of the maze, even though they were solving it together till now. The one person escape inverts that total cooperative game win structure, revealing how end state design shapes the entire emotional arc. Okay, now we come to the emotional arc. The first emotional arc is the phase 1. Phase 1 is the collaborative trust. It establishes a narrative debt so that the emotional cost that makes betrayal feel more meaningful than strategic. We'll look into 4 points mainly here. The communal ritual performance. So players enact rituals before progression is permitted. The mechanic makes cooperation feel like a prerequisite condition rather than something of a strategic choice, inscribing collectively into a rule structure itself. So communal ritual performance. So players perform the rituals together collaboratively, which makes the cooperation a prerequisite condition. Thus, it creates that communal collectivity into the rule structure itself. There is a shared information dependency. Everyone has part of the information and not the full information. As a lot of rituals are spatial, so players go around different parts of the room. This creates this creates a collaborative information structure which producing mutual reliance as a designed constraint. The spatial co-presence and the immersive contract. The map as well as the logic demands a physical co-navigation while the GM invokes the convention of immersive theater. The space itself becomes a co-author of the narrative. Finally, the accumulation and the shared investment. Now, to complete rituals, players collect treasure which is done collectively. And later on, this treasure is divided as players in a competitive betrayal where players try to kill each other to get the most treasure out of that collaborative treasure lot. So the resource gains are framed as a collective, which creates a positive shared history with later on, which is narratively broken down when the betrayal arrives. We'll now go to the phase 2, the competitive betrayal. Phase 2 adds competition to the overall emotional arc, changing the narration from a collaboration to a competition. So here we have resources reframing. So previously shared resource totally has a new context now, since there is no more cooperation. It's competition, and people are fighting to get the most out of it. Earlier, the sharing of information that was happening, it totally goes into the other direction where people start to withhold information which they had been sharing previously. So the social contracts also start to break. The structure is an irony in itself because the same mechanical verbs produce opposite narrative meanings right now. And finally, it's a total pivot narratively from what the game started out to what the game ends. The main argument that you want to talk about here is that the sequencing of the mechanics itself is a narrative for the experience. The mechanics is not a substrate through which the narrative is delivered. The mechanic is itself a part of the narrative syntax. The hybridization leads to amplification because each genre has its own limitation, but once we mix the genres, it registers a different kind of narrative meaning, and their intersection produces something which an individual genre wouldn't have created. The betrayal arc also demonstrates that tabletop games can produce emotional experiences of narrative complexity through the structure. The final implications, let us think of what all tabletop can be beyond what is actually present right now. Expanding the definition of narrative, the mechanical sequencing is producing emotional arcs. So the theoretical models of narrative must also account for procedural syntax alongside linguistic syntax. Genre hybridization as a narrative, genre hybridization as a methodology, taking up different genres not only for their commercial innovation but also to check out how they act together narratively. Finally, the betrayal arc makes a claim that solidarity and competition are not opposite but sequential phases of a single human experience. Thank you for joining. I will be present in the Discord for any questions from your side. You can check out my website at Imersync.com, or you can connect with me in my email address and WhatsApp or LinkedIn as given in this screen. Thank you.